And that's what really kept me alive, because everything was taken away from me.
Hello and welcome to a new episode of Coming Clean Podcast. This is your host, Peter O. Estevez. And today I have the incredible pleasure of having a new guest today, who is Dr. Eger. Dr. Eger is a prolific author and a member of several professional associations. She has a clinical practice in La Jolla, California, and holds faculty appointment at the University of California, San Diego. She has appeared in numerous television programs and helps countless people lead lives by moving beyond their problems, no matter how insurmountable they believe they are to be. Hello, Dr. Edith Eger, and welcome to Come and Clean Podcasts.
Thank you so much. And I know that love is not what we feel, it's what we do. And you are so committed, your life, to help others, to guide others, and how not to ever be a victim of any circumstance.
Absolutely, absolutely. Coming from an environment where I felt like a victim as a young boy, I had to break the cycle. But I want to talk about you at the age of 16 years old,
Yes.
back in 1944, where you were a gymnast, a ballerina, and madly in love with a young boy named Eric. And then you had a knock at the door. Can you tell us a little bit about that day?
Well, we never ever heard of Auschwitz, but Hungary joined Hitler in 1944. It was a wonderful time for my life. Yes, I was in love with Eric, and he told me I have beautiful eyes and beautiful hands, which really kept me alive in Auschwitz. So we were gathered and taken to Auschwitz. I like to tell you that my mother told me in the cattle car something that I like to tell you now that really kept me alive. And that's what I tell children when I go to schools. And she said, we don't know where we're going. We don't know what's going to happen. Just remember, no one can take away from you what you put here in your own mind. And this is what I say in schools, to stay in school, to stay with the teachers. And that's what really kept me alive, because everything was taken away from me. And I had my mind, and I also had my sister with me, Magda.
So what happened in Auschwitz? What happened when you get to the camp?
What happened, that what is happening now, that we didn't know what was going to happen next. We were in this cattle car, I don't know for how many days, and many people died. And then we were separated, and I saw the sign, Arbeit macht frei, work makes you free. And my father said, it's okay, we're just gonna work and then we go home. And that is really, unfortunately, not happened. Everybody over 40, under 14 were taken to the gas chamber right away. And my parents died in the gas chamber that day.
You were actually in a line before your mother and your sister Magda were separated.
Yeah.
And can you take us back to that painful day and that painful story?
Yes, it was the line, and there was this guy pointing to the left and pointing to the right. And he asked, looking at my mom, is she your mother or is she your sister? And unfortunately, I said, my mother. So he took my mother pointing to the left, and I followed my mother. You know, I love Camus, and I talk about the absurdity of it all, that I was following my mother, and the very man to send my parents to the gas chamber, looked me in the eye and grabbed me. And he said, "You're going to see your mother very soon. She's just going to take a shower."
And
And threw
obviously,
me on the other side, which meant life.
you didn't see your mother again from there, but the
I
same,
never saw my mother, but I saw we call them the capos. Um, it was really another inmate who took my earrings, and I was bleeding, and I said, "I would have given it to you, and by the way, when will I see my mother?" And she pointed at the chimney. Fire was coming out of the chimney. And she said, "Your mother is burning there. You could talk about her in past tense."
wow,
So what was happening, as I told you, that is happening now, that we didn't know what's going to happen next. That's where we are right now too. We don't know. And that's a very difficult place to be, in a kind of a limbo, that you don't know what's going to happen next. And this is exactly what happened. And my sister Magda, who was a pretty one in my family, I don't know what was your name in your family, but my mother told me, "I'm glad that you have brains because you have no looks." And so I was the brainy one, and she was the beautiful, pretty one. And so um, since we talk about not what you lose, but what you still have left, I was asked by my sister, where we were standing in our nakedness, "How do I look?" And I remember that I looked at Magda, and I realized I am her mirror. And so instead of telling her how she really looked, I said to her, "Magda, you have beautiful eyes, and I didn't see it when you had your hair all over the place." So, this is all about you and I. We want to point out to people that there is hope in hopelessness, that you never give up. And that's why I'm very proud, and I hope you are very proud of your ancestors, because they didn't have it as good as I do, but I never gave up.
absolutely. The same man that separated you from your mother and basically allowed you to go to the right, to the line where you and your sister Magda lived at the concentration camp for many days, was also the same man that summoned you to dance for him that evening, the Dr. Odette, Dr. Mangala. Tell us a little bit about that and how were you able to survive that episode?
It was everything, such a surprise. And he came into the barracks. I didn't know who he was, but he wanted to know who are the talented people. And I was very talented, and I had my friends with me and my schoolmates, and they just threw me in front of me, and he says, "Dance for me." So I didn't know. When I was on Oprah, she said, "You danced for your life, didn't you?" And I said, "Yes, yes, yes," because he was pointing out who to take to the gas chamber. And I was praying and dancing, and I closed my eyes and I pretended that the music was Tchaikovsky, and I was dancing the Romeo and Juliet
And
at
what
the
is
Opera House in Budapest. I can still remember the routine. Da-da-da-dum, and I do a high kick, I still can do it. And that's how I checked out. I checked out. And today when I work with women and men who were sexually abused, that's what they tell me. They checked out.
You said something in your book that I learned how to live in a death camp. How do you learn to live in a death camp?
I I learned to look at the guards that they were more in prison than I was. I was able to turn hatred into pity. And they were wearing that uniform, and I felt so sad that they were brainwashed to hate me. I was told, I'm never gonna get out of here alive because I'm subhuman and I'm cancer to society. And today I tell people, question authority. Don't blindly adhere to authority. Because Plato said you have to think of a lie and you have to be a big one, and then you repeat it until people believe it. You know, Ahmadinejad said that the Holocaust didn't exist. I don't think he read Plato, and that's why I ask people, please question authority rather than blindly adhering to authority. And this is what we're facing, whether we are going to question authority and never blindly adhering to authority, because that would be the beginning of the end of democracy. And that's how I came to America. I was looking for democracy. But unfortunately, I worked in a factory and I had to go to the bathroom, and I found out that there is prejudice in America because there was a bathroom called colored, 1949. So prejudice means to prejudge. And that's why you and I are committed to hopefully see how we can empower each other with our differences. You're a kind of a macho man, you know, in the best sense of the word, because you're kind. You're kind and you have integrity. And I can see that in your eyes. I love the eyes that smiles at me. And so I'm gonna call you an ambassador for peace.
Thank you, Dr. Eger. Dr. Eger, you say in your book that we choose to be victims, that you can be victimized, but you don't have to be a victim.
Beautiful.
How is it that one can transition from not
Yeah.
being a victim or even
You're such a
becoming
good interviewer. Thank you. Yes, it's not my identity. It's not my being. It's what was done to me. I think there is a big difference that my being is my identity is, I'm not a victim, I was victimized. It's not who I am, it's what was done to me. And I think that is very important because we are all born good and loved and full of joy and passion for life. I'm just reading the book of Brené Brown. She's going to interview me next week. And she's a beautiful, beautiful woman. And we say the same thing, but not the same way. You see, people say I'm a survivor. No, I'm not a survivor. I'm a human being, survived an experience, but it's not my identity. See, I am a human being, a pretty ordinary human being. But you know what? It takes courage to be an ordinary human being. And I'm not better than anybody or less than anybody. I make mistakes. I will make mistakes. I'm human. I'm fallible.
And it is the courage that turns an ordinary individual into an extraordinary individual.
Yeah, you're so good. Thank you.
Dr. Eger.
Just do it. Just do it.
Just do it. Absolutely. Dr. Eger, in a world that we're living in today with the pandemic, with the collateral damage that is rarely talked about, an increase in depression, an increase in addiction, an increase in hunger, physical, verbal abuse, incest, and all the collateral damages it is caused to humanity, how do we support one another, or how do we help others transition from pain into healing?
Never try to talk to a depressed person and cheer them up. Keep that feeling they have. Meet the person where they are, and don't say, don't minimize it or deny it. These are the defense mechanisms. Just meet people where they are and keep their feelings company. The way that in the English language is sounds like, and then you go to the heart. Sounds like you said about it. You give people permission to feel any feelings without the fear of being judged. And you cannot heal what you don't feel. So, all the work I do is really grief work, not what happened, but what didn't happen.
That is beautifully said. You are definitely an extraordinary individual. You, in your 40s, after having 3 children, decided to go back to school. You got your PhD.
Yeah.
And you became a doctor.
Yes. I'm still climbing that mountain. I still want to know what's going to happen next. I'm curious.
But what's more amazing, and this goes out to the young people that a lot of times put boundaries in their abilities to succeed and do better. At the age of 90, you wrote your first book. At the age of 92, you wrote your second book.
Yes, yes.
And you really found deep and profound love in your husband, Bella, after your second marriage. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, people ask me, did you love your husband? And I said, after the war, I was in a hospital. I was very skinny. I was very hungry. And I was very lonely. And I met this guy in tuberculosis place. And he bought me Hungarian salami. I said, that did it. What do you mean love? Love? The thing was that most of us were so shipwrecked that we just wanted to belong. So anybody, we didn't know who that person really was. So I became either his mother or his child. And so when I divorced my husband, I didn't go back to him. I married the second time a man, and because I was a woman, it was a very different, it's not going back, it's a new beginning. Don't go back, because just a matter of time you're gonna be in the same place. It's have a new beginning, and this is a good time to talk about that. What you're gonna hold on to, and what are you willing to let go of? I like the word willing to let go what you're holding on to, and it's not working anymore. I give up the need to try to please other people. I give up my need looking for other people's approval. And most of all, of course, give up any kind of perfectionism. Because when you procrastinate, you must be usually a perfectionist as well. You just want to do everything right, which means never. So it takes courage to be average. And
absolutely. And it takes courage to go from being the caboose to being the engine.
You got it. There you go. That's my granddaughter. Yes. Her teacher
takes us to that story of your granddaughter. Tell us a little bit about your story.
I went to school because it was Grandma's Day, and the teacher called her my little caboose because she was a perfectionist. She would erase things 100 times. And And she thought that she doesn't really belong to that class, which was a very special class, starting at 145 IQ. And this is the first time I talked to her about Auschwitz, not to allow the teacher to use labels. And when she went to Bishop's High School and she had to write for getting into colleges, she had to write her autobiography. And the title was When the Red Caboose Became an Engine, and she got into Princeton. She graduated with honors. She got a PhD at UCLA, and she's now professor at a university. So I think there is such a thing as generational something that is very important to look at what goes from generation to generation. And yesterday's victims can easily become today's victimizer because part of the psyche identifies with the aggressors. And we call it the Stockholm Syndrome.
Dr. Eger, I call a break in the cycle, and you use it several times in your books as don't take it from generation to generation. How do we break that cycle? I like to believe that I have broken many cycles. I came from a very dysfunctional childhood, sexual abuse, pedophilia, alcoholism, and I started all over. I discarded what didn't serve me, and I created a new me with new beliefs, with new systems. But how do we do that? How do we transition into finding and discovering that better version of ourselves?
Using all your suffering and recognizing that the more you suffered, the stronger you became. You see, the more you were in the darkness, the closer you were to light, which means God. No, you didn't go back. No, you didn't go back. You gave birth to the you that was meant to be free. That's freedom. See, you become your parent. You become a parent to that little boy that is inside you. And he is crying, and you go and hold him and tell him, I'm never gonna leave you, honey. See, you have me now, and I'm a good parent to me, because self-love is self-care. It's not narcissistic. My precious Katie is the one who tells me to remind people that to be very careful that self-love is self-care. And that's very, very important to acknowledge that you cannot give to anyone what you do not give to you. So never put yourself down. You're beautiful. You're one of a kind. Peter, unique, authentic, magnificent, brilliant.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Eger, in your book, The Choice, which I have a copy of right here.
Thank you.
And this just reminded me of that. You share stories of many of your patients without disclosing who they are, but you share a lot of the experiences that you encounter with your patients. But one story that stands out was that young 14-year-old boy that set his elbows on your desk and was very full of aggression. Tell us a little bit about that story, because that correlates exactly to loving that little boy in you, that little girl in you, mothering yourself.
I got a Christmas card from a colleague of mine, and she's telling me how sad she is that the white supremacy is growing now. And so it reminded me of the 14-year-old who came to my office and told me he's a boot boy. I don't know a thing about boots, but I looked at his boots and I acknowledged it that they're nice boots. And then he got up and he put his elbow on my desk and I quote, "Hey, Doc, it's time for America to be white again. I'm gonna kill all the Jews, all the, using the N-word, all the Mexicans, and all the Chincos." Now, I'm going to tell you that I think that people don't come to me, they're sent to me. And the most obnoxious person is your best teacher. So I talked to God and I said, "What's the meaning of that, God? I don't know what this guy is here and you sent him to me." And God said, "Find the bigot in you." And I said, "God, it's impossible. I came to America penniless. I went to the bathroom. I went to the colored bathroom. I joined the NAACP. I marched with Martin Luther King. I was going on and God said, find the bigot in you." And I took a deep breath, which I usually ask people, if someone is angry, they're going to say you to you. And when you hear you, you're going to be dumbfounded. You're stupid, you did. And then you take a breath and you tell yourself, the longer they talk, the more relaxed I become. You take the negative stimuli and turn it into positive. And not until I realized that who knows under what circumstances what I would do in terms of hatred, that I may also have a Hitler in me as well. And not until I created an atmosphere that gave that boy a permission to feel any feelings without the fear of being judged. And then I gathered myself. I looked at him as compassionately as I could. And I said, "Tell me more." Because love is time. He never knew where I came from. If I would have reacted, I would have dragged him to the corner. I would step on him. I would tell him, "Who do you think you're talking to?" I saw my mother going to the gas chamber. So there's a difference between reacting or responding.
Wow. Incredible, powerful words. Dr. Eger, you often say that you found your freedom when you gave up the need for approval and the need to perform. How do I find my freedom?
Instead of saying, "Why me?" you say, "What now?" You see, there are two questions I ask, and one of them is, when did your childhood end? And if you were sexually abused, your childhood ended. You were more in prison than I was because I knew the enemy and you didn't. See, so it's not comparable. It's hell. And yet, both of us are here because we suffered and we were able to turn the suffering into an opportunity to become a survivor and never ever a victim of anything or anyone at any time.
Powerful.
So
Dr.
I'm
Eger,
talking here to a survivor, right, who was victimized and turned that into an opportunity. Auschwitz was an opportunity, a classroom.
Dr. Eger, we're coming towards the end of the year, 2020, perhaps one of the most difficult years for many.
Yeah.
And how do we gauge difficult, right? Because the level of pain for each of us is different. what hurts one does not hurt the other, or we tend to minimize each other's pains at times. What would be the closing words for people today that for the first time are truly experiences change in the world? You know, we have been pushed out of our comfort zone into a deeper zone of our inner selves to be able to learn who we are and what we are made of.
You're being tested and tested and tested. I think it's good to look at your birth certificate. It doesn't say life is easy. There is no guarantee. There is no certainty either. That's why people get a divorce, because they think that somebody else is going to make you happy. It doesn't happen that way. Anybody who's dependent externally is going to be depressed because no one makes you happy. So again, self-love is self-help. There is probability that if I look at where I am in a prison, how can I turn inward and develop my inner resources? Then you look at that situation as a rebirth, a renaissance, because no one can take away from me. So that's why my daughter calls it Edithism, that the opposite of depression is expression. What comes out of your body doesn't make you ill. What stays in there does. So you got to scream it out, rather, because what you do with anger, you either vent it, suppress it, and that's what cancer patients many times, they're good patients, they don't really scream it out. It's okay, what comes out of your body is fine. So you either vent it, suppress it, and I like to teach you how to dissolve it. Because while you're angry, you gave your power away. You allowed someone to push your buttons. Children are very good at that. You know, when you are in a classroom and you have someone there who is going to tell you, you are stupid, you are this, you are that, and you just tell yourself, I'm practicing my low frustration tolerance level, and the longer they talk, the more relaxed I become. You take the negative stimuli, turn it into positive.
Wow.
The way you think, what you think, you create.
Powerful words from Dr. Edith Eger, author of The Choice and The Gift, 12 Lessons to Save Your Life. Thank you, Dr. Eger. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.